Hi there, Jeremy O'Carroll, founder and director of the Fitzroy Learning Centres here. In this video, what I'd like to do is take you quickly through some of the main features of readers 1 to 10. And we're going to begin with the first 5 readers. And what we discover there is these 5 readers, the chief thing they really do is teach us the 5 basic vowel sounds. Now, the thing to note here, however, is that we don't teach them in alphabetical order. Rather, we teach them in a IUOE order. Now, why do we do this? Well, we do this because in our method, we always work from easiest to hardest. And it just so happens that the at sound is the easiest of the 5 vowel sounds to teach, basic vowel sounds to teach, and the et sound is the hardest. Now, one thing you'll notice if you actually pick up a copy of the first reader, A Fat Cat, is that almost every word is actually an at word. If you move on to the 5th reader, though, you'll find that whilst there are many et words in it, a lot of them aren't actually et words. And so you get an indication there why it's easier to teach the at than the e. And you'll just discover that the et words tend to be a little bit more complex, a little bit more advanced. And for that reason, we like to build confidence with starting at the easiest point and then working gradually on towards more difficult things. Now, another important thing about the readers is the skill of comprehension. And of course, with phonics, it's very easy, if you're not careful, to really, learn to decode words, but not actually comprehend what it is that you're decoding. So reading only has any value if you're actually understanding what you're reading. And that's why in the Fitzroy readers, every book has an accompanying worksheet which focuses on comprehension, and that worksheet is the F worksheet. So all the F worksheets are focused on comprehension. Now, one thing we should note is that you really want to get kids to try to remember the answers to the comprehension questions without referring to the book. If you always let them go back to the book to find the answer, then their memory will become very lazy and they won't actually need to remember the answers. So what we want to train them to do is remember things as they read. And so really you only want to let them refer to the book as a very last option. Another way you can help improve comprehension skills is just to ask questions, comprehension questions on general reading that you might be doing as a class. So if you read a storybook, for instance, to your class, then you can actually ask them some comprehension questions and that will give them good practice on it. Okay, now another important thing to think about as we move through the readers is the reader review. So what things do you need to do after reading a reader before going on to the next one? Well, some of the things to look at are the words we've used. So these are revision really. What I want you to do is revise these following items before moving on to the next reader. So we've got words we've used, which you're going to find at the back of the readers. You've got some new words, which you'll find at the back as well. I'd like you to revise really all the new information found in the reader. And the chief 2 forms of information are the new sounds being taught in the reader. Now you can find this obviously on the back cover or just on the inside. And also the special words, which are also found on the back cover. So they're the main sorts of new information. Of course, there might be just words, general vocabulary, words which the students might know. There probably won't be very many because we're careful to choose appropriate language. But depending on where you're teaching, depending on whether English is a first language, you might need to go through some words too. Now, another great way to help students prepare for the next reader level is to give them a dictation test. What you need to do there is just simply take 1 or 2 pages from the reader you're working on and use that for dictation. And if you do that, you'll help children develop their ability to read and to fine-tune their spelling, because if they're going to make certain mistakes, you'll often catch them in the dictation. Okay, another question which often arises is, when do we use the X series? And really, while you could go reader 1 to 10 and then 1x to 10x, there's a far better way to do it. And so the order we recommend is to go readers 1 to 6 first, then go over readers 1x to 6x before moving on to readers 7 to 10 and 7x to 10x. What you're going to discover is that reader 1 is really 1x is quite a bit harder than reader 1, and it probably would fall in the range of about reader 4. But what you discover if you go through our readers 1 to 10 is there's a bit of a jump in difficulty level between 6 and 7. So it's a really good place to stop, get some extra revision by going through readers 1 to 6 and before heading on to readers 7 to 10 and 7x to 10x. Now, what can we say about the X series? Well, firstly, they don't actually contain any new sounds or any new digraphs. So what we're really doing is simply extending the knowledge students already have. Now remember, this is very important in the first readers because for a start, children have to learn the entire alphabet, both upper and lower case. So there's a lot to be learnt, and because of this, extra revision is very useful before moving on to readers 11 to 20. As you're teaching readers 1 to 10, you're going to have plenty of chances to be quite creative in what you do. A couple of examples to help you, just think about the way you should be teaching. In reader 6, we have the word have, which has a silent E. Now, how do you teach this? You can talk about it being a magic E and other things, which can help. But sometimes, you can do something very simple. You can just dramatize the silent E. You can say something like, have has a silent E, shh, and with the shh, you can make a shh sort of gesture by putting your finger up to your lips. And, this will kind of startle perhaps the students, and they'll start to laugh because it's kind of funny how dramatic you're being. But that'll actually help them remember that have has a silent E. What about with the story of what I say, the story of I? And so I is an interesting letter, a word, because when it's written as the I is written as a word, it's written as a capital. And, if you write A as a word, it's not written as a capital. So I is a bit unique, and you have to try to think of a way to help children remember why I should be written as a capital. And you can just invent any real story now. We don't have to make it really grammatically correct in a sense. So one story might just be that I, when it's with it, because it's sort of thin and tall and thin, if it's with its friends, so other letters, then they can help sort of support it and keep it standing up. But when it's by itself, then, it's easy for it to fall over, and that's why it needs to grow arms and legs. Now notice here, of course, on the screen, the capital I we've got looks a bit more like an L, but the one we're going to be teaching students has the bars on top and bottom, and so those bars are going to help it stand up. And the same thing might be for stories about identical twins or twins. You've got to think of a reason why identical twins, for instance, like the double L on the word in the word bell, you've got to explain to children why they don't sound out twice. It's not b-e-ul-ul, it's b-e-ul, bell. So you just say it once. And why is that? Well, you can just invent a story about twins, and you can say, well, say identical twins. They look the same, they sound the same, and they tend to do things at the same time. So you can imagine these identical twins, they sound the same and they talk at exactly the same moment, so it sounds like there's just one of them talking. So that could just be a simple little story which helps children understand and remember that identical twins only get sounded once. Finally, in readers 1 to 10, I'd just like to talk to you a little bit about the digraphs. Now remember, digraphs are two or more sounds put together to form a new sound. So it's a totally new sound. So if you put an S and a together, so the S and the H, you get a new sound, sh. And so that's very different from the basic letter sounds of the two letters. And so that's different to, say, a blend, because a blend is two or more letters which basically just sound their basic letter sounds out, but they're run together. So if you've got the word like a blend at, that's really just the at and the t sound run together. Okay, now the thing about digraphs, of course, is they're a little bit, well, potentially confusing to students because they've just spent pretty well the whole of readers 1 through to 10 and 1x through to 10x, with the exception of one digraph, learning that certain letters make certain sounds. And so if they see an A, they'll know it makes the sound A, etc., etc. But when you get to digraphs, suddenly the letters aren't making the sounds they've just learnt, so it can be potentially confusing. So what you need to do is talk to them about cooking with letters. So you might say, hey, imagine you wanted to bake a cake. what would you need? And so they can run through the ingredients you'd need, and you can help them here if they're little kids. So you need things like flour, eggs, milk, sugar. And so you can then what you do, you'll take them, you'll mix them together, you'll put them in a cake dish, put it in the oven, and what comes out, does the flour, eggs, milk, sugar, etc. come out? No, it doesn't. A cake comes out because you've cooked these ingredients together, and what's come out is something quite different from what's gone in. Now, the same with letters. You take two letters like a k and a h, and then you cook them together and you end up with a ch. So by explaining diagraphs like that to kids, talking about cooking with letters, it helps them make sense of why these letters suddenly changed the sound and joined together to form a new sound. Okay, so that's just a bit of a run through of the main features for readers 1 through to 10. Hope it's been helpful. Hope it's helped prepare you for your exam, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you.